Picture this. The most pompous, self-important collection of alien bureaucrats you've ever seen, all crammed into a massive crystalline chamber that screams we spent way too much money on interior decorating. The Galactic Council, ladies and gentlemen, where ego meets incompetence and has awkward alien babies. At the center of this circus sits Chancellor Blimforth, a 7-foot-tall purple blob with more tentacles than common sense and a voice that sounds like someone gargling gravel mixed with unearned confidence. He's been running this show for 3 centuries, which in galactic politics is apparently long enough to develop a god complex but not long enough to develop actual wisdom. Esteemed colleagues, Blimforth announces, his voice echoing through the chamber like a bad audio system at a high school assembly. Today we witness yet another primitive species attempt the ultimate test. Oh, the ultimate test, capital T, capital U, capital T, because nothing says we take ourselves way too seriously, like unnecessarily capitalizing your supposedly impossible challenge. This thing has been the Galactic Council's pride and joy for over 2,000 years. A survival gauntlet so brutally difficult, that it's stumped every single species that's ever attempted it. And trust me, that's a lot of species. We're talking hundreds of civilizations, each one convinced they were the hottest thing since sliced bread, all reduced to quivering masses of regret and therapy bills. The test was designed by some long-dead species called the Tormentors, which should have been the first red flag, but apparently the Galactic Council missed that memo along with several others. These Tormentors were basically the galaxy's ultimate sadists, and they created this test as their final middle finger to the universe before they conveniently went extinct. Probably from testing their own creation, but nobody talks about that part. The humans, Blimforth continues, practically vibrating with smugness, will surely provide us with the same entertainment as all the others. Perhaps even more so, given their laughably primitive origins. The council members make various sounds of agreement, which range from clicking to gurgling, to what sounds suspiciously like someone stepping on a squeaky toy. They're all so confident, so absolutely certain that these upstart humans will crash and burn like everyone else. After all, what could possibly go wrong with their foolproof plan? Famous last words in any language, folks. Famous last words. And then the humans walk in, and you can practically hear the record scratch moment happening in real time. First through the door is Captain Jake Morrison, callsign Tank, and let me tell you, the nickname fits. This guy looks like he was carved out of granite by someone who had very strong opinions about jawlines. 6'4", built like a brick house, and carrying himself with the kind of casual confidence that comes from having survived things that would give other species nightmares. He's wearing what appears to be a standard military uniform, except it's covered in patches from places that sound made up. Antarctica winter survival expert. Tornado chaser certified. Australian outback guide. The aliens don't know what any of these mean, but they're getting a very bad feeling about it. Behind him walks Dr. Luna Reeves, and she's the kind of brilliant that makes other people feel inadequate just by existing. PhD in about 6 different fields, all of which sound terrifying when you really think about them. Xenobiology, extreme environment adaptation, something called disaster psychology, that nobody wants to ask about. She's got this perpetual smirk like she's in on a joke that nobody else gets, and spoiler alert, she absolutely is. Bringing up the rear is Marcus O'Sullivan, but everyone calls him Mac, and he's the kind of engineer who looks at impossible problems, and says hold my beer. Short, stocky, with hands that look like they've personally wrestled with every piece of machinery ever built. The kind of guy who can fix a warp drive with duct tape and spite, and has probably done it more than once. Now here's where things get interesting. Chancellor Blimforth, in his infinite wisdom, decides to show off his extensive research on humanity. Ah yes, he says, tentacles waving dramatically, the species from the Class 12 Deathworld. How fascinating that you managed to develop spaceflight despite your hostile environment. Dead silence. You could hear a pin drop, if pins made sound in space, which they don't, but you get the idea. I'm sorry, Luna says, and her voice has this dangerous sweetness to it, like honey mixed with nitroglycerin. Did you just call Earth a Class 12 Deathworld? Indeed. The highest classification on our danger scale. Your planet is quite remarkable in its hostility to life. Jake starts laughing. Not chuckling, not giggling, but full-on belly laughing like someone just told him the best joke he's ever heard. You think Earth is hostile, he manages between laughs. Buddy, Earth is where we go for vacation. Mac nods sagely. Pretty relaxing place, really. No acid storms, gravity's nice and light, barely any radiation. Wait, Luna interjects, what classification is Australia? The aliens frantically check their databases. The answer comes back, and you can see Blimforth's color shift from purple to a sickly green. Class 15. Right. Jake grins. And that's just one continent. Mac here grew up in Alaska, which I'm betting you've got listed as somewhere around class 14. The council members are starting to make distressed noises. This is not going according to plan. So naturally, because the universe has a sense of humor, and it's apparently feeling particularly spiteful today, Chancellor Blimforth decides to double down on his bad decisions. You know, like a gambler who's already lost his house, but figures one more hand will fix everything. Nevertheless, he declares, his voice cracking just slightly, the ultimate test remains impossible for any species to complete. You will see, and with that he activates the test chamber, because nothing says I'm totally confident in my position, like desperately trying to prove a point to people who are already laughing at you. The chamber doors slide open with the kind of dramatic hiss that screams, we spent way too much on special effects, and inside is what can only be described as someone's idea of absolute hell. We're talking acid rain that could strip paint off a starship, gravity cranked up to about 3 times Earth normal, an atmosphere that's roughly 60% toxic gas and 40% spite, and vegetation that looks like it was designed by a committee of sadists who really didn't like the concept of living things. The other species taking the test, and oh yes, there are others because apparently the Galactic Council believes in the buddy system even for traumatic experiences, immediately start deploying enough protective equipment to stock a small army. Environmental suits that look like they cost more than most planets' GDP, gravity compensators, air filtration systems that could probably clean the atmosphere of a factory world, and enough backup equipment to supply a small space station. The Zephyrians, who look like crystalline butterflies, if butterflies were the size of refrigerators and had anxiety disorders, are practically encasing themselves in a mobile bunker. The Gornaki, big lizard-like creatures who are apparently the galaxy's premier warriors, are suiting up like they're about to storm the beaches of Normandy. The Ethereal Collective, who are basically sentient gas clouds with superiority complexes, are surrounding themselves with so many force fields they look like a very pretentious disco ball. And then there are the humans. Jake takes one look at the environment, sniffs the air, and nods approvingly. Nice. Reminds me of that training exercise in the Amazon during monsoon season. Luna is already pulling out what appears to be a standard scientific tablet, and starts taking readings. Oh, this is interesting. The acid rain has a pH of about 1.2, that's actually less acidic than my morning coffee. Mac just rolls up his sleeves. Well, this should be fun. Haven't had a good challenge since that reactor meltdown on Kepler Station. The aliens monitoring the test through their fancy observation systems are starting to make the kind of noises usually associated with small animals in distress. Because while everyone else is still getting suited up, Jake has just stepped into the acid rain and started using it to clean mud off his boots. Hey Luna, he calls out cheerfully. This stuff works better than that industrial cleaner we used on the ship. Luna, who has now collected several samples of the deadly vegetation and appears to be taking notes like she's writing a grocery list, looks up with interest. Really, we should bottle some for later. Meanwhile, Mac has found what the test designers probably thought was an impossible shelter building challenge, where you have to construct adequate protection using only the materials available in the environment, and he's treating it like the world's most relaxing home improvement project. He's already identified which of the deadly plants have useful fibers, which rocks have the best structural integrity, and how to use the acid rain as a natural adhesive. You know, he says conversationally while building what appears to be a rather cozy little shelter, this reminds me of that camping trip in Siberia. Remember that, Jake, when the temperature hit -40 and we had to build shelter out of ice and wishful thinking? Oh yeah, Jake laughs, now apparently using one of the terrifying predator plants as a back scratcher. Good times. Though this is definitely more comfortable. At least it's warm. The monitoring systems are going absolutely insane. Alarms are blaring, warning lights are flashing, and the alien observers are starting to question everything they thought they knew about the universe and their place in it. Because in the span of about 20 minutes, while other species are still figuring out how to not die from the air, the humans have essentially turned a nightmare hellscape into what appears to be a moderately pleasant afternoon outing. Now, if you thought the aliens were having a bad time during the setup phase, you should see what happens when the test actually gets going. Because the tormentors, bless their sadistic little hearts, didn't just create a hostile environment. Oh no. That would be too simple. They created a hostile environment with a deadly obstacle course, complete with biomechanical predators that were designed to be absolutely unstoppable killing machines. Picture this, creatures that look like someone crossed a tiger with a spider, gave it armor plating, and then asked a committee of nightmares to make it worse. These things are 12 feet long, have claws that can cut through starship hull plating, and possess hunting instincts that would make a great white shark weep with envy. They're called Apex Hunters, because apparently the Tormentors had all the creativity of a B-movie scriptwriter, and they've been the downfall of every single species that's attempted this test. The Zephyrians take one look at the first Apex Hunter, and immediately start broadcasting distress signals in 17 different languages. The Gornaki, who are supposed to be the galaxy's ultimate warriors, start forming defensive formations that look suspiciously like very organized panic. The ethereal collective just straight up nopes out of there, floating away at maximum speed while making sounds that probably translate to "I didn't sign up for this." And then there are the humans, who have apparently decided that deadly biomechanical predators are the perfect opportunity to turn this into some kind of twisted team-building exercise. Okay, so we've got multiple hostiles incoming, Jake announces like he's calling out plays in a football game. Luna, what's your read on their weak points? Luna, who is currently hanging upside down from a tree branch getting a better angle to observe one of the creatures, calls back, well, they've got excellent armor plating, but it looks like the joints are exposed. Also, their hunting pattern suggests they rely heavily on thermal imaging, so they're probably vulnerable to temperature confusion. Got it, Mac yells from somewhere inside what appears to be a rapidly constructed fortress made of rocks, acid-resistant plants, and what looks suspiciously like parts cannibalized from the test environment itself. I can rig up some thermal decoys, give me 5 minutes. 5 minutes. The galaxy's most feared biomechanical killing machines, and Mac needs 5 minutes to figure out how to outsmart them using what's essentially prehistoric technology and human ingenuity. Meanwhile, Jake has apparently decided that the best way to deal with a 12-foot-long armored predator is to wrestle it into submission, and he's winning. The Apex Hunter, which has never in its artificially extended life encountered anything that didn't immediately run away screaming, is having what can only be described as an existential crisis. It was designed to hunt prey that would flee in terror, not prey that would grab it in a headlock and start giving it a lecture about proper hunting techniques. See, the problem with you guys, Jake explains to the confused predator while casually avoiding its claws, is that you're too focused on the intimidation factor. Sure, you look scary, but you've got no follow-through. Now, if you really want to be an effective predator, you need to work on your grappling game. The monitoring systems are going absolutely bonkers. The aliens observing this are making noises that their translators are probably wisely refusing to interpret. Chancellor Blimforth has gone from purple to green to what appears to be a very concerning shade of transparent. But wait, it gets better. Because Luna has figured out that the Apex Hunters communicate through subsonic frequencies, and she's managed to hack into their communication network using her tablet and what appears to be a jury-rigged antenna made from some of the local vegetation. Hey guys, she calls out cheerfully. I've got good news and bad news. The good news is I can now talk to these things. The bad news is they're apparently very lonely and have been asking if we want to be friends. Friends? Mac pokes his head out of his fortress, which now appears to have grown significantly and might actually qualify as a small castle. With the murder machines. Well, turns out they're not actually murder machines. They're just really bad at making friends. Apparently, everyone they've ever met has run away screaming before they could properly introduce themselves. And that's how the humans accidentally turned the galaxy's most feared predators into the galaxy's most socially awkward pets. The Apex Hunters, who have spent millennia being the ultimate test of survival, are now following the humans around like oversized armored puppies, who are just excited to have someone to talk to. But the real kicker comes when they reach the final challenge, the puzzle that stumped every species for 2,000 years. It's this massive crystalline structure covered in symbols that shift and change, requiring not just intelligence but the kind of lateral thinking that most civilized species have been educated out of. The other species, what's left of them anyway, are standing around looking defeated. The Zephyrians are crying, which is apparently a thing they can do. The Gornaki are having what appears to be an honor-based argument about who gets to give up first. The ethereal collective has given up entirely, and is just floating in a corner making sad gas cloud noises. And the humans? Well, they're looking at this supposedly impossible puzzle, and having what appears to be a very casual conversation. So Jake says, scratching his chin, this is supposed to be impossible, right? According to the briefing, Luna confirms, running her hands over the crystalline surface. Some kind of ultimate test of intelligence and problem-solving ability. Mac is already pulling out tools that he definitely didn't have when this started, but has apparently manufactured from test environment materials and pure spite. Well, it's a machine, right? And machines can be fixed, modified or convinced to do what you want them to do. Wait, Luna says, and her voice has that dangerous tone again. Are you suggesting we don't solve the puzzle? I'm suggesting, Mac grins, that we give it what it wants to hear. And that's how the humans solved the galaxy's most impossible puzzle, by completely ignoring the rules and just asking it nicely to please stop being difficult, because they had a schedule to keep. The crystalline structure, which has been the final boss of this test for 2 millennia, apparently just needed someone to say please and thank you. It opens up like a flower, revealing the completion chamber, and starts playing what sounds suspiciously like a victory fanfare. The aliens are no longer making any noise at all. They've moved beyond shock, beyond horror, beyond any emotion that has a name. They're just standing there, staring, as the humans casually stroll through the completion chamber, like they're taking a leisurely walk through a park. So there they are, the humans, standing in the completion chamber, after absolutely demolishing a test that has been the galaxy's gold standard for impossible for the past 2,000 years. The timer reads 4 hours and 37 minutes, which is not just a record, it's the kind of record that makes you question whether the timer is broken, reality is broken, or you're having a very elaborate nervous breakdown. For context, the previous best time was held by the Supremacy Collective, and they took 6 months. 6 months of careful planning, extensive preparation, and eventually giving up and crying. The humans did it in less time than it takes to watch a decent movie, and they brought snacks. Chancellor Blimforth is staring at the results display like it personally insulted his mother. His color has cycled through the entire visible spectrum and has now settled on a shade that doesn't technically exist, and is probably giving the monitoring equipment a headache. This is impossible, he whispers, his voice cracking like a teenager going through puberty. The test is impossible. It has always been impossible. The tormentors designed it to be impossible. Oh, about that, Luna says, looking up from her tablet, where she's apparently been doing some light reading while the aliens have their collective mental breakdown. I did some digging into the test's programming while we were in there. Turns out the tormentors didn't design this as a test of survival or intelligence. The chamber goes so quiet you could hear a quantum particle thinking about existing. They designed it as revenge. And there it is. The other shoe drops with the kind of cosmic thud that probably registered on seismic equipment 3-star systems away. Revenge. Blimforth manages to croak out. Oh yeah, Luna continues with the casual tone of someone discussing the weather. See, the tormentors were apparently really angry about being wiped out by a coalition of galactic species about 3,000 years ago. So they created this test as their final middle finger to the universe. It was specifically designed to be impossible for any civilized species to complete. Mac looks up from where he's been tinkering with what appears to be a souvenir he made from crystalline puzzle fragments. So it was supposed to be a permanent screw you to everyone. Exactly. The whole thing was rigged from the start. Every challenge, every obstacle, every supposedly impossible element was calibrated to exploit the specific psychological and physical limitations of civilized galactic species. Jake, who has been scratching behind what might charitably be called the ears of his new apex hunter buddy, grins. So they basically designed the perfect test to fail every species in the galaxy except for the one species they never met. Bingo. The silence that follows this revelation is the kind of silence usually associated with the heat death of the universe. It's so profound that it has weight, mass, and is probably bending space-time around itself. Chancellor Blimforth makes a sound that the translation systems wisely refuse to interpret. It's followed by several more sounds that suggest his mind is not just blown, it's been launched into orbit, achieved escape velocity, and is currently exploring distant galaxies. But, he stammers, you treated it like a mildly interesting afternoon. Jake supplies helpfully. Yeah, well that's because it kind of was. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was fun and all, but we've had company picnics that were more challenging. The acid rain was actually pretty refreshing, Mac adds. And those apex hunters are surprisingly good conversationalists once you get them talking. Plus I got some fantastic samples for my research. Luna chimes in, this whole experience has been wonderfully educational. The other alien species who managed to survive the test, and by survive I mean, were carried out by their respective emergency medical teams while gibbering incoherently, are being treated for what the medical staff are diplomatically calling acute reality adjustment syndrome. Chancellor Blimforth, meanwhile, has reached the final stage of his mental breakdown and has started laughing. Not happy laughing, mind you, but the kind of laughing that suggests someone's brain has decided to take an extended vacation and left a gone fishing sign behind. So you're telling me, he gasps between increasingly hysterical giggles, that for 2,000 years, we've been using a test designed by a species that wanted to make sure we'd never succeed, and the first species to beat it are a bunch of Deathworlders who think acid rain makes good cleaning supplies. Pretty much the humans reply in unison. And that's how the Galactic Council learned that their ultimate test was actually an elaborate prank by a dead civilization, and the punchline was a species that considers their homeworld a relaxing vacation spot. So here we are, 3 hours later, in what has to be the most awkward awards ceremony in galactic history. Chancellor Blimforth, who has been sedated twice, and is currently being held upright by a combination of alien medical technology and sheer bureaucratic stubbornness, is attempting to officially welcome humanity to the Galactic Council. His speech, which was probably very impressive when he wrote it, has been reduced to a series of random words occasionally interrupted by what sounds like suppressed sobbing. The other council members are maintaining the kind of professional composure that only comes from years of political training and possibly medication. We hereby, with great the humans have, please don't hurt us, Blimforth manages, before his aide gently takes the microphone away from him. The humans, meanwhile, are standing there looking like they've just been told they won a prize for something they do every Tuesday. Jake is still accompanied by his apex hunter buddy, who has apparently decided that following humans around is way more fun than being a terrifying predator. Luna is taking notes on alien psychology with the kind of scientific fascination usually reserved for discovering new species. Mac appears to have built a small device out of spare parts during the ceremony, and is now testing it by making it play what sounds like classical Earth music. So Jake says, because apparently someone needs to break the uncomfortable silence, this is nice and all, but we should probably mention that we've got a schedule to keep. We're supposed to stop by the Kepler station to help with their reactor problem, then swing by the Tau Ceti system to assist with their asteroid mining operation. The aliens exchange glances that suggest they're beginning to understand that their problems might be just beginning. Asteroid mining. Someone squeaks from the back of the chamber. Oh yeah, Max says, without looking up from his device, should be fun. Haven't done any large-scale demolition work in a while. Last time was when we helped clear out that black hole's accretion disk. Good times. You cleared out a black hole's accretion disk. Well, not the whole thing, Jake clarifies. Just the dangerous parts. Though I guess technically all parts of a black hole are dangerous, so we basically redesigned the whole system. The locals were very grateful. Luna looks up from her notes. Oh, and we should probably mention that Earth is sending a delegation to the next Galactic Council meeting. They're very excited to meet everyone. The color drains from every alien face in the chamber, which is particularly impressive for the species that don't technically have faces. How many humans are coming? Blimforth whispers. Just a few thousand, Jake replies cheerfully. You know, diplomats, scientists, engineers, a few military advisors, some tourists who heard the galaxy was nice this time of year. Pretty standard stuff. Tourists, someone repeats faintly. Yeah, Earth tourism industry is really taking off. Apparently there's a lot of interest in visiting places that aren't actively trying to kill you. It's a novelty. And with that casual revelation, the humans collect their certificates of membership, shake hands with various appendages, and head toward the exit. Jake's apex hunter friend trots along beside him like the galaxy's most dangerous therapy dog. Luna waves goodbye while somehow managing to take readings on the atmospheric composition of the chamber. Mac has his new device playing what sounds suspiciously like Earth's greatest hits. As they reach the door, Jake turns back with the kind of grin that has probably caused civilizations to surrender preemptively. Oh, one more thing, he says. Thanks for the test. It was actually pretty relaxing. Most fun we've had since we helped that neutron star with its rotation problem. You helped a neutron star with its rotation problem? Blimforth asks, though it sounds like he's not sure he wants to know the answer. Long story, Jake grins. We'll tell you about it next time. And with that, the humans leave, taking with them the last remnants of the Galactic Council's collective sanity, and leaving behind the kind of silence usually associated with the aftermath of natural disasters. In the distance, you can hear Chancellor Blimforth asking his aide to check if their insurance covers acts of casual human competence. The answer, it turns out, is no, it does not.